King Solomon is an intriguing figure because the Bible makes so many claims about him, controlling vast amounts of territory.
When the Temple of Solomon was destroyed in 586 BCE, all the temple treasures were lost to history.
Solomon's true story was just exposed, sharing the amazing origins of his magical ring, linked with the old tales of the Nephilim and Ham. The stones of the ring sparkled under the stars in ancient Jerusalem. This ring was more than a symbol of power. It represented the night Solomon met God in Gibeon, showing his supernatural abilities. Why do many explorers who come into contact with this ring vanish in the act? Let us explore the Solomon ring that could give religious authorities countless worst-case scenarios. The secret life of Israel's king. When Solomon became king, he had a profound and memorable experience in the town of Gibeon. This town was known for its significant religious site, where a high place for worship existed. Solomon went there to offer sacrifices to God. He made a large sacrifice, offering 1,000 burnt offerings on the altar. This act of devotion showed his deep faith and commitment to God. That night, after making the offerings, Solomon had a dream where he encountered God. In this dream, God appeared to Solomon and asked him a remarkable question. Ask for whatever you want me to give you. This was a pivotal moment for Solomon. He could have asked for anything, riches, power, or a long life, but he chose something different. Solomon responded with great humility and wisdom. He acknowledged his young age and inexperience, recognizing the vast responsibilities of leading the people of Israel. Solomon said, "Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" God was pleased with Solomon's request. Because Solomon asked for wisdom instead of selfish desires like wealth, honor, or the death of his enemies, God granted him an exceptionally wise and discerning heart. In addition to wisdom, God also promised Solomon riches, honor, and a long life, as long as he remained faithful and obedient to God's commands. This encounter in Gibeon highlighted Solomon's deep values and priorities. His choice for wisdom over material wealth reflected the values of his ancestors, like Abraham and Moses, who also valued spiritual growth and righteousness. Abraham, known as the father of faith, trusted in God's promises and sought a relationship with him over material possessions. Moses, the great leader and prophet, chose to follow God's calling to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, valuing God's mission over personal gain. Solomon's request for wisdom set the tone for his reign as king. It showed that he valued understanding and justice above all else. This decision not only pleased God, but also established Solomon as a ruler whose wisdom would become legendary. His wisdom was not just for his benefit, but was meant to serve the people, guiding them with fairness and insight. Other ancient texts show Solomon as a seer who could see and talk to the spiritual world. His life blends royal duties, building projects, and spiritual quests, connecting the human and the divine. His legacy combines political skill and mystical insight, showing Solomon as a key figure linking human experiences with spiritual realities. His life reflects the balance between our daily lives and spiritual pursuits. Through his story, Solomon shows the lasting importance of balancing our material needs with our spiritual desires, a concept that still resonates today. Solomon's wisdom seems to come from both divine guidance and hidden knowledge. The Talmud says he could understand the languages of birds and animals. Origen points out that Solomon was more than just a king. He was a sage, a magician, and an early theologian. His deep desire for knowledge helped him make decisions and lead his people, but also brought complications that reached the heavens. This deep understanding let him see into the universe's essence, a gift with great advantages and serious risks, leading him on paths filled with wonder and danger. On his travels, he sometimes found a big metal box with old Hebrew writing in empty scenery. This wasn't just an old piece of history, it was a cleverly designed jail. Many ignore the Gospel of Judas, which gives different views on Bible characters. This book shows Solomon's life wasn't just about wisdom and power. It included tough personal and spiritual struggles, showing him as a man dealing with both divine and human challenges, facing both mental and spiritual issues. On a ship, the atmosphere was tense as if something strange was present. Inside, 72 demons gathered, each representing a form of evil, yet they all worked toward a common goal. This cooperation was unusual given their chaotic nature. The Ars Goetia lists these 72 demons, each with unique abilities. The list includes names like Baal, Paimon, and Asmodai. These demons are summoned and controlled via complex rituals using Solomon's magical seal or ring, which acted as a key to their obedience. The lore about these demons isn't just about summoning or control, but also reflects themes of human ambition, the quest for knowledge, and the moral risks of power. Solomon's story, especially his use of the seal, symbolizes the dual nature of wisdom, as both protective and dangerous. His control over these spirits shows the human desire to dominate the unknown. Handling these entities requires intellectual skill, moral fiber, and bravery. The narratives warn about the thin line between brilliance and recklessness, highlighting the dangers of overreaching. Solomon's interactions with these demons, while showcasing his exceptional qualities, also serve as a metaphor for the potential consequences of great power, the moral and spiritual challenges one might face. The intriguing part of the story is how Solomon, a human, controlled such terrifying forces. The Testament of Solomon, a book not usually recognized by mainstream religious scholars, tells of magic and extraordinary events. According to this book, Solomon received a special ring from the Archangel Michael, marked with the seal of Solomon, giving him the power to command these creatures. Controlling these demons was not simple. The Nag Hammadi library, with ancient Gnostic texts, highlights the intense focus and energy needed to manage such powerful beings. The seal on the ring was more than just a decoration. It was a hexagram, a symbol with both mathematical and mystical significance. This symbol linked Jewish tradition and mystical Kabbalistic teachings. Solomon's use of the ring showed the dangers of great power. Next, we'll see his quest for more power. The temple built on shadows. The symbol known as the Seal of Solomon is deeply rooted in history, mysticism, and culture. This symbol, often depicted as a hexagram, a six-pointed star, is said to have given King Solomon the power to control demons, spirits, and animals, and to influence both the natural and supernatural realms. The origins of this symbol are found in Jewish tradition, but it also holds importance in Islamic and Western occult traditions. The hexagram represents the harmony of opposites, earth and heaven, male and female, material and spiritual. This reflects Solomon's wisdom and divine favor, which supposedly allowed him to control supernatural forces and accomplish great feats, such as building the first temple in Jerusalem. In Jewish and Islamic lore, the symbol is often portrayed as a ring engraved with God's name, giving Solomon his extraordinary powers. According to the Testament of Solomon, a pseudepigraphical text, Solomon used the ring to command demons and spirits, compelling them to help build the temple. This story highlights the dual nature of the ring as both a tool of divine wisdom and a means of controlling evil forces. The Archangel Michael presented this ring to Solomon, granting him the power to control devils. With this ring, Solomon didn't just rule his kingdom, he wielded the power of devils to undertake grand projects like the temple's construction in Jerusalem. The power imbued in the ring highlights Solomon's control over both the natural and supernatural realms, emphasizing his unique position as both a king and a master of the arcane. The legendary accounts of King Solomon are not just confined to his wisdom and his role as a monarch in the biblical texts. Ancient narratives and later interpretations, such as those in the Midrash Genesis Rabbah, depict him as a figure whose knowledge and authority transcended the ordinary limits of human capability. According to these tales, Solomon's reign was marked not only by political acumen and wisdom, but also by supernatural dominion, particularly over spiritual entities. This portrayal elevates him beyond the realms of mere human rulers and places him in a category that borders on the mythical. Solomon's power is often shown as having a profound and almost limitless control over the spiritual world. This aspect of his character brings him into a space where he commands not only human subjects, but also spirits and demons. Such control is indicative of a belief in his extraordinary, divinely bestowed abilities, which allowed him to govern all creations, visible and invisible. This omnipotence is a recurring theme that underscores his unique position in ancient narratives, suggesting a blend of human leadership and divine-like oversight. Furthermore, his interactions with different cultures and religious practices are also significant. Texts like the Gospel of Judas and scholarly works such as the Bible Unearthed explore Solomon's engagements with ancient Semitic pagan traditions. These references highlight a more complex figure who was not only involved in the establishment and maintenance of his own kingdom's religious and cultural norms, but also engaged with a wide array of beliefs and practices beyond the orthodox frameworks of his time. This suggests a level of syncretism where Solomon's reign might have encompassed a variety of religious traditions, blending them into a broader cultural and religious context. The use of demonic forces to build a place of prayer raises fundamental questions about righteousness and sin. Can a holy site truly be considered sacred if its construction was steeped in morally dubious practices? This dilemma remains a topic of intense scrutiny and debate, highlighting the often blurred line between righteousness and wrongdoing in religious history. King Solomon's quest for greatness led him to explore unknown territories. Imagine a sunset that not only envelops the kingdom of Israel, but also dims the once bright spirit of Solomon, whose wisdom is now marred by growing flaws. Initially, Israel was a stronghold of devout worship, but this changed dramatically after Solomon's alliances through marriage with women from other nations. These unions introduced the worship of Baal and numerous other deities, turning Israel into a hub for a variety of religious practices and diluting its religious purity. Solomon, who had previously sought and received heavenly wisdom at Gibeon and claimed to wield powers granted by the divine, became trapped in a complex situation of his own creation. His story almost seems to serve as a warning, echoing a harsh truth mentioned in the Gospel of Mary about the perils of divine knowledge leading one into dark and troubling paths. The Midrash in Genesis Rabbah points out that God recognized Solomon's folly. His wisdom, once a beacon, had become his downfall. As his reign continued, the shift from a wise and revered king to a man consumed by his flaws is stark and serves as a profound lesson. Solomon's path from seeking spiritual enlightenment to grappling with the consequences of his ambitions is a cautionary tale, revealing the dangers of mixing spiritual goals with earthly desires. His fall underscores a critical message about the delicate balance between the pursuit of knowledge and the arrogance it might breed, highlighting that even the wisest can falter under the weight of their own ambitions. Solomon's wisdom faltered. Now we'll explore the consequences of his actions. The ring and the ruler. Once celebrated as a symbol of godly wisdom, Solomon fell victim to basic human flaws that he had avoided earlier in his life. The ring that had once symbolized divine authority had come to represent Solomon's personal failings. His decline reached its peak when God announced that the kingdom of Israel would be split apart. This was God's punishment for Solomon, delivered after his death. In the Testament of Solomon, it is noted that his ring, his seal, and his profound knowledge, however impressive, were powerless against the steady progression of human mistakes and godly judgment. Consider this, a complex picture formed from strands of divine knowledge, human error, and spiritual efforts, all intertwining to portray Solomon, a man who not only exemplifies what humans are capable of achieving, but also stands as a warning against the complex backdrops of history. Solomon's story, including his famous magical ring, teaches us that no level of divine favor or supernatural ability can protect us from our natural flaws or the correcting forces of destiny. The ancient texts that discuss his life emphasize the continuous struggle between elevated wisdom and the simple, often overpowering urges of human nature. Solomon's experience highlights the perpetual conflict between higher knowledge and the basic instincts that drive human behavior, suggesting that true wisdom involves recognizing and overcoming these inherent challenges. His story underscores the notion that every individual, no matter how wise or powerful, remains susceptible to common human vulnerabilities that can undermine even the most impressive legacies. This isn't just a straightforward tale. It's a detailed mix made up of different stories from various times, religions, and scholarly fields. It includes the detailed notes made by Jewish rabbis long ago and the deep thoughts of early Christian leaders like Origen. Today's historians and scholars, such as Israel Finkelstein, add important facts to these stories through their careful digs and studies. These explorations are crucial. They turn what could easily be dismissed as just old tales into something more grounded in reality. Among the lesser-known but very important texts that deepen our understanding of Solomon's spiritual path are the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Thomas, and the Nag Hammadi Library. These books show us how difficult it can be to handle knowledge that's not part of our daily lives. They show Solomon as a man of great abilities, whose talents both lift him up and impose limits on him. This story also makes us think twice about what we believe we know about knowledge itself. It shows us through Solomon's life that having wisdom doesn't necessarily stop people from making poor choices. Even the smartest can falter when faced with tough moral decisions, the temptations of worldly desires, and false spiritual paths. This tale, often used as a warning, is preserved in the Talmud and other lesser-known texts, like the Midrash Genesis Rabbah. These writings remind us constantly of the pitfalls that even extensive knowledge cannot help us avoid. His life is a classic demonstration of the splendid and risky aspects of heavenly gifts. This story winds through the passages of time and touches most deeply when contemplated in moments of quiet reflection. Imagine a primitive world, devoid of the common conveniences we now take for granted. A place populated with both myths and tangible elements, where deities roam the earth. The Nephilim, massive beings born of celestial beings and human women, first appeared. For many years, those who study history, philosophy, and old texts have wrestled with understanding these giant figures from our past. Researchers and thinkers have debated whether these giants were wiped out by a massive flood, or if some trace of them remains with us today. We delve into the complex history of the Nephilim and examine their influence on human events, drawing from both ancient writings and recent academic studies. Envision an Earth vibrant and youthful, with skies untouched by pollution and oceans crystal clear, flowing unpolluted. In this pristine environment, incredible beings make their presence known. These are the Nephilim. Grasping the complexity of their path from the heavens is rarely straightforward. Once celebrated as a symbol of godly wisdom, Solomon fell victim to basic human flaws that he had avoided earlier in his life. The Gospel of Mary, a Gnostic text discovered in the late 19th century, remains one of the most intriguing and enigmatic writings outside of the canonical Christian scriptures. This gospel, attributed to Mary Magdalene, provides a unique perspective on the teachings and spiritual insights of Jesus, emphasizing knowledge and inner wisdom over the traditional narratives found in the canonical Gospels. Its content, particularly its exploration of heavenly beings and their involvement in human affairs, offers a profound look at early Christian thought and the diversity of beliefs that existed among early followers of Jesus. Unlike the canonical Gospels, the Gospel does not focus on the life and ministry of Jesus, but rather on his teachings and the spiritual enlightenment of his followers, specifically Mary Magdalene. The text is fragmentary. Only 3 partial manuscripts have been discovered, the most complete being the Berlin Codex, purchased in Cairo in 1896. Despite its incomplete state, the Gospel of Mary provides significant insights into Gnostic beliefs, particularly regarding the soul's path and the role of spiritual knowledge. The text delves into complex spiritual hierarchies and ethical debates among heavenly beings. It portrays a cosmology where angels and other celestial beings play active roles in the governance of the universe and the moral guidance of humanity. These beings, often referred to as sons of God in Gnostic texts, are depicted as having differing opinions on the nature of humans. Some argue in favor of humanity's innate goodness and potential for spiritual evolution, while others believe in an intrinsic predisposition towards sin and materialism. This dichotomy reflects the Gnostic belief in a spiritual struggle between light and darkness, knowledge, gnosis, and ignorance. The Gospel of Mary suggests that this conflict extends beyond the human realm into the celestial, where beings of higher spiritual orders debate and determine the ethical paths that humanity might follow. Central to the Gospel of Mary is the figure of Mary Magdalene, who is portrayed not just as a disciple, but as a profound teacher and holder of secret knowledge imparted by Jesus. The text elevates her above the male disciples, presenting her as understanding Jesus' teachings more deeply, a point that often leads to tension and conflict within the group of Jesus' followers. This portrayal challenges the traditional patriarchal structures of early Christian communities by suggesting a model of spiritual authority and wisdom that is based on direct experience and inner enlightenment rather than hierarchical position. The exploration of these themes in the Gospel of Mary invites us to reconsider not only the historical role of figures like Mary Magdalene, but also the broader implications of such narratives on our understanding of history and humanity. By presenting alternative viewpoints on divine interaction and moral guidance, the Gospel of Mary encourages a reflection on the nature of evil, the potential for human redemption, and the dynamic between free will and divine intervention. Moreover, the text challenges the conventional religious narratives that have often dominated Christian thought, offering a more mystical and introspective approach to understanding the divine. It suggests that true understanding comes from within, through a personal path of spiritual discovery and enlightenment. Today, the Gospel of Mary continues to be a subject of fascination and study among theologians, historians, and lay enthusiasts alike. Its emphasis on inner wisdom and the empowerment of marginalized voices resonates with contemporary spiritual and social movements. The Gospel's portrayal of Mary Magdalene and its teachings on spiritual equality provide a valuable resource for discussions on gender and leadership within religious contexts. Angels left their sacred places, sharing forbidden knowledge. Let's see what happens next. The rise and fall of the Nephilim. These angels left their sacred positions in divine separation to connect with human women. This union was not just about forming relationships, but also about transferring extraordinary knowledge. According to the Gospel of Thomas, these angels taught their enormous children, known as the Nephilim, about sophisticated topics that were too complex for most people at that time. They shared insights into arts, sciences, and the universe's workings that were not meant to be known by humans. This knowledge transfer was not just educational, it disrupted the balance of the spiritual and physical worlds. It led to rapid advancements that caused major disruptions. Humans began to crave power and exhibited increased aggression. This scenario has echoes in the myths of the Titans, similar to the Nephilim, who were powerful beings eventually overthrown by their younger divine relatives, the Olympians. These stories appear in various cultures, hinting that they might represent distorted memories of actual beings who once existed. The Nephilim were known not just for their physical might, but also for their impact on society, introducing both beneficial and harmful effects. Their actions, whether positive or negative, were so significant that they led to a drastic measure from the divine, a flood intended to remove nearly all evidence of the Nephilim from Earth. These lessons explain that the Watchers were not just there to watch. They were supposed to actively help humans by teaching them and guiding their moral and intellectual development. Their role was crucial in making a connection between humans and the divine. However, their direct involvement with human beings caused problems. As they became more involved with humans, they began to adopt human behaviors and desires. This loss of their original detachment had significant consequences. They fell in love with human women, which was against their celestial rules. From these forbidden relationships came children known as the Nephilim, who inherited traits from both their heavenly fathers and human mothers. This mix brought many problems, which are discussed in other ancient writings, like the Sanhedrin section of the Talmud. These texts criticize the moral decline of society, pointing to increased idol worship, mistreatment of women, and a disregard for the sacredness of life. The Nag Hammadi Library, which contains ancient Gnostic texts, offers more information about the troublesome knowledge the Watchers shared. They taught humans advanced techniques, such as how to work with metals, create beauty products, and alter natural materials. While these skills were initially seen as beneficial, they eventually led to harmful outcomes like the creation of weapons, increased vanity, and greed. It's as if by opening the door to this advanced knowledge, humanity was also exposed to greater risks and dangers. Therefore, the story of the Watchers acts as a cautionary tale about the dangers of too much involvement between divine beings. In human affairs, It shows how good intentions can lead to negative results when boundaries are crossed or sissy. The tale suggests that even beings from heaven reflect on the path of the Israelites, guided by divine presence through harsh deserts and against strong enemies, with their eyes set on a promised land described as flowing with milk and honey. However, during their arduous travels, both physically and mentally, they encountered remnants of a terrifying past, a daunting reminder from the time before the Great Flood. Ancient texts like Genesis Rabbah deepen our understanding, revealing the intense fear the Israelites felt when they came across traces of giants whose presence was so massive that the ground itself seemed to quake. These giants, believed to be powerful enough to pluck stars from the sky, stood as insurmountable obstacles to any ordinary person. The narrative becomes even more striking with the account of Israelite spies in Canaan. These spies felt incredibly small when they saw beings that towered like the ancient pyramids of Egypt, reducing their own sense of worth to that of insects, an extreme representation of the differences between human vulnerability and the formidable nature of these Canaanite giants. These encounters stoked fear and ignited vigorous discussions among scholars and spiritual thinkers. Origen, an early Christian scholar, suggested that if these giants were indeed descendants of the Nephilim, their survival implied that some beings had miraculously escaped the devastation of the divine flood. This theory, supported by other ancient writings from the Nag Hammadi library, delves into the theological implications of such survival, hinting at overlooked divine actions and celestial errors. In the ancient land of Canaan, imagine towering figures overshadowing ordinary human life. These giants, mentioned in texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh from Mesopotamia, hint at similar beings across the Near East. This prompts questions. Were these beings the biblical Nephilim, or merely related to them? Moreover, how did they survive the massive flood God sent to eliminate corruption? Many modern interpretations veer towards the sensational, driven by a contemporary interest in conspiracy theories and extraterrestrial life. Michael Heiser is a scholar who has delved deep into biblical languages and ancient Near Eastern texts. He's known for his efforts to parse the sensational from the scholarly, particularly in topics that attract widespread speculative and supernatural interpretations, such as the Nephilim. Heiser's work often revolves around understanding these ancient texts in their original context, aiming to clarify misconceptions and bring forward what the text might have meant in their time. This is particularly relevant when discussing the Nephilim, as Heiser argues against the common misconception that they were giants, suggesting instead a more nuanced interpretation based on linguistic and cultural cross-fertilization between communities in ancient times. Elaine Pagels and Bart Ehrman, on the other hand, are scholars with a focus on early Christian texts and the Nag Hammadi scriptures. Pagels is renowned for her work on the Gnostic Gospels, exploring how these texts can illuminate our understanding of early Christian beliefs that did not align with the mainstream doctrines that later dominated Christian thinking. Ehrman's work often deals with how the New Testament was formed and has changed over time, highlighting the human aspects of scripture production and the political and theological debates that influenced which texts were included or excluded from the canon. Are Ham's descendants truly shaping our modern world, or is this narrative a myth? Leave comments and subscribe to join the debate and uncover more intriguing stories.